Forest 3 has been announced at the Game Awards 2025 with a brand new trailer, and I'm really excited to see what's hiding. So let's not waste more time and let's get into our breakdown. The trailer kicks off with a sequence set into spaceship. Here we can see many things that remind us of Sons of the Forest. For example, the oldie hits Hey You. A more familiar face is the crunchy bunches we can find here on the left, which are renewed with a new futuristic style. Next to this we can find two interesting items. The first one is a drawing with the line "Daddy went to space." This is probably a hint that the character will be a proud father. Another interesting thing that you can notice here is another paper you can find next to crunchy bunches that really reminds me of the Solange star pattern we can see in Sons of the Forest. In the second game of the Forest Saga, we know cultists were looking after the cube as well as Edward Puffton. But one thing is certain, the bunkers we discovered on the island are not randomly built. It was revealed in the full release that the pattern followed by Edward Puffton was the same known by the cultists, the Sons of the Stars. This may mean that Sons of the Forest will play a major role in understanding what happened before Forest 3. Another very similar drawing can be seen under the chests, that really reminds me of the logos we've seen so far in the Forest Saga. I mean the logos of those pharmaceutical corporations that we're looking after immortality. In this particular case, it reminds me of PuffCorp. Of course, we cannot talk about PuffCorp in whatever year this is set in, since it was shut down after the death of Edward Puffton and Barbara Puffton. But maybe this could hint at the pharmaceutical company that was started by Timmy LeBlanc at the end of Sons of the Forest, as seen in the end credits. Other than that, we gotta notice a bunch of more stuff, for example, sodas or energy drinks, as well as a sort of futuristic miniature meals we can see here on the left. Forest 3 seems to be more of a sequel to Sons of the Forest rather than Sons of the Forest being a sequel to The Forest, which is a good thing, a bad thing, let me know in the comments. Right next, there is a little detail that may hint a little bit more on the nature and identity of our first character. When we look at this door, that really reminds me of an alien movie, we can see the emergency line, which is both in English and Chinese. We know that in Sons of the Forest, the Chinese world was very close to the English world, since Barbara Puffton was presumably Chinese, while Edward Puffton was English or American. This more and more strengthened the theory that we're playing as a son or descendant of Jack Holt and Virginia Puffton. We are talking all about theories, but it's still very interesting to notice that some details are hinting at the fact that we're playing as a descendant of the first character of Sons of the Forest. Another little but major detail we can see in the sequence is literally a shotgun, or whatsoever, a laser gun on the right. It may be that we're getting a proper gun since the beginning, might be so, might not be so. I remind you that the Sons of the Forest trailer was set into the helicopter that was going to crash, and we had the shotgun just in front of us. Well, you know what happened. The shotgun was later found in a coffin, the shovel was found in a cave, so I'm not gonna be surprised if the shotgun or the laser gun we see here is gonna be replaced or relocated in the near future. One other thing that will be the main focus of this breakdown is these robotic finders. These robots seem to be powered by a sort of white stuff, a white substance, liquid, probably the same that we'll find and analyze later in the breakdown. In this case, it seems that these robots are able to get into waters that are infested by some kinds of very weird mutants or animals or aliens. I don't know how to talk about them. Right next, we can have a better look at some of the animals. For example, these kinds of birds and this worm-like stuff, this worm-like alien that will inhabit the red flowers. These red flowers seem to be a sort of trap that will throw out a worm as a defense system to the player and other beings. Too bad, the new gathering mechanic will allow us to defend ourselves from these attacks, and to be honest, I would be more worried about these alien fish since they move very similarly to the babies in Sons of the Forest and the Forest, and we know that the babies are the actual enemy in both games. Here we have, in a very Metro Exodus-inspired atmosphere, a new look at the robots finders that are also able to get on ground. In this case, we're not talking about those giant bats that you all noticed, we're going to talk about those skeletons we can find all around. Not only the one hanging down from the tree, but also those that we can find on the ground. It seems like this alien world was already discovered by humans, or sort of, and I wouldn't be surprised if this links all together to Sons of the Forest. I remind you that in the second game we have an alien spaceship along with human astronauts. Whatever is happening right now, we know that this is set hundreds, maybe thousands of years later into the future, but I wouldn't be surprised honestly if what we've seen here in this trailer and what we will live in Forest 3 is going to be what happened to those astronauts we previously found in Sons of the Forest. Another interesting thing to notice is the difference we have between blue cubes and golden cubes. This is probably part of the player's interface, but it's also quite interesting to notice that blue cubes seem to be linked to inanimate objects, and the golden cube to animated beings. This can be seen especially in the next sequence, where we have these capybaras-like, boars-like, pigs-like creatures. I don't know, it's gonna be very difficult to define them. This cube-like interface allows us to recognize a little bit better the enemies and the animals in general. And then, here we have a first look at what I will probably call Virginia. As you can see, she is a sort of human-like being cut in half, very Silent Hill-ish, and covered with these worm-like beings. As you notice, these worms are not only covering her, but also in the lake or whatever this water is. This may be a hint at the fact that this time enemies will be influenced by the environment. I will be pleased to see the map varying not only by the environment but also by the beings that inhabit it. Imagine an area that is completely infested by a specific enemy that you will never find anywhere else. In the next sequence we probably have that one detail that really creeped me out the most. This little eye we can see on the tree. This is very unsettling, but the fact that this eye is following us is even more. It seems like Forest 3 is going to be way more creepy than its predecessor, not only because of the atmosphere, but also because of how spooky the environment is. We then have better looks at some of the alien species that truly reminds me of Denis Villeneuve's movie Arrival, and I wouldn't be surprised if this game was influenced by that. And one other detail before the final sequence is a sort of scanning light we can see on the bottom left. I don't know where this comes from, it seems like it's missing something, maybe a robot? It's weird to see it just floating around, scanning stuff, without an actual robot or thing doing that. And finally we have the ending sequence where we're fighting a sort of Hydra that truly reminds me of the Kraken in Sea of Thieves. But there is one more thing that we have to notice. Of course you've seen it. This white stuff that the mutant is peeling. It is very similar to the white stuff the fingers in Sons of the Forest are expelling. So this definitely is a Sons of the Forest sequel, a proper sequel, and there are so many pieces that are coming together and making a great puzzle. As you've seen, there are so many details. There is so much more stuff that is probably hidden and I didn't notice. Probably the most interesting ones are of course the backstory of the character, the fact that he could be linked in a way or another to Jack and Virginia, and of course the one thing that is setting me up the most is the Solange star pattern we can see at the beginning of the trailer. To be honest, it is not really the kind of game I would have expected from this saga. As I told you in the reaction, it seems more like The Forest Badlands rather than The Forest Part 3. but I'm also kind of fine with that. I'm a bit worried about how retrospectively this will affect Sons of the Forest and the Forest. Now it's giving so many answers to our questions, and probably, I say this with my art in my hands, we are slowly killing the mysterious fog that was inhabiting the Forest Peninsula and that was already disappearing in Sons of the Forest Island. This is my take, although I think I will love it, since Sons of the Forest was a very beautiful game. I love it. I'm playing it right now. The Forest was my childhood, and I think Forest 3 could really be something unique, something very interesting. My only hope is that this is not going to be a fully operational open world game, but will be more story driven. But boys, let me know what you think about this gameplay, and what do you think about this trailer? If you're excited for Forest 3, what do you think will happen? Did you notice something that I missed? Please let me know in the comments. And I can't believe I'm seeing it again after so much time, after so long. But if you enjoyed this video, leave a like and consider subscribing, follow me on all the social media, especially in our Reddit community and Discord server on Instagram and Facebook. And always remember guys, to survive the forest.